From here on out, it's going to get a little trickier. But the first thing that I need to start with before I start looking at some of these tricky ones is it's going to be very beneficial for you to be aware of the first 10 perfect square roots. So what I'm saying is this number here, this is going to be whatever 1 times 1 is. So that's going to be 1. 1 is a perfect square root. So then here, this would be 2 times 2, which would give me 4. And then 3 times 3, which is 9. 16. 25.
81.
Okay, so these we call perfect square roots, which means that when I see one of these numbers, then it's going to come out nice and even. And the reason that these are going to be helpful is because that's what I'm going to look for when I come down here. So if you look at number 11 is not one of these numbers, which means that it's not going to come out nice and even. But we're going to learn how to rewrite this, but keep a radical involved. So if it can't come out even, it's going to have a radical left behind. So what we're going to look for is we're going to look at 24 and say, all right, which one of these numbers can come out of 24? So let's think first, what are some factors of 24? I have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, and 3 and 8, and 6 and 4. Okay? So looking at all of my factors, do I have any perfect square roots that show up here?
4.
I have 4, and I have 1. Okay? Now, 1, as nice as it is that it's a square root, it's not really going to change much for us. Okay? So, we're never really going to use 1. If 1 is the only one that you have available, you're not going to do anything to your square root. Okay? But considering the fact that I have another set of factors here that have a perfect square root, this is the set of factors that I'm going to use. Okay? And I'm going to use this set of factors because what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this into like the square root of 4 times the square root of 6. I'm going to break this 24 down into 2 factors that multiply to get 24. Okay? So, and I'm looking for one of those factors to simplify. So, this simplifies down to what? This would simplify down to 2. Okay? Notice the 2 no longer has a radical sign around it. But this changes to 2. Can I do anything to the square root of 6? No. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tack that square root of 6 right behind that 2.
Nice.
Okay? And of course, whenever we take the square root of anything, this is still going to be a plus or a minus. Okay? So now let's look at 48. What are some factors of 48?
1 and 48.
Okay? We always have 1 and 48.
24 and 2. 12 and 4.
There's one more.
16 and 3. 16 and 3.
Okay? So once I have all my factors, I'm going to go through and circle my perfect square. So 1 is a perfect square, 4 is a perfect square, 16's a perfect square. Okay? And I'm looking for the largest one. So this would be out, that would be out, and this is the pair that I'm looking at. So I'm going to rewrite this as the square root of 3 times the square root of 16. And then this square root of 16 is going to change into, this changes into 4. This doesn't change into anything, so when I write this, he's just going to go along for the ride. And I would prefer that the number that can be square rooted is in front, and then whatever is left underneath the radical comes second. Okay? So go ahead and start listing your factors for 72. What are some factors that we're finding
4, 36.
that multiply to get 72? What are some factors we're finding? 2 and 36.
4 and 18, 6 and 12.
Okay, 4, 18, 6, 12. I believe there are 2 more. 1 and 72. Nope, 3, 24. There's 1 more. 8 and 9. So those are your list of factors that you should have. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to circle which ones are perfect squares. So I have 1, 36, 4, and 9. Now this one has multiple ones. Now I am looking for the one that is the largest, okay, which happens to be 36. So then I'm going to rewrite this as the square root of 2 times the square root of 36. And then I'm going to change the 36 to a 6. And then I'm just going to tack on that square root of 2 as well as a plus minus. Okay? Now you could choose one of the other perfect squares, but then that means that you're going to have to break it down even more. So 18 would be able to be broken down even more. So that's why we look for the largest amount. Couple hints that I would give you, okay? If I was looking at 72, would 81 be a number I could use? Looking at all of my perfect squares, would 81 be a square that I could use if I was looking for 72? No, because 81 is bigger than that. So I would be looking at all of these, okay? 64, would 64 be a reasonable square root that I would find if I was using 72? No, because what times 64 is going to get you 72? Something really small. What about 49? 49 times 2 wouldn't even get you 72. So my rule of thumb is 1, cap it off where the largest number is. So 72 is between 64 and 81. And then I would even cap it off one more time by saying, well, what's half of that number? Okay, because if you can't multiply it by 2 evenly, then it's not worth it. So I would be limiting myself to 6 of these as opposed to all of them. Okay, so I'm going to spend the rest of the day today working with you to get comfortable with this, because we're going to do it again for the next 2 days.